If you import a license violation from upstream the supply chain, it will not help you saying that it's not our fault. Somebody in the supply chain made the mistake. Because if you distribute the software, then it's your sole responsibility legally to comply with the license terms. And if you don't, it's legally, but it's an every man for himself, but it should be everybody together. So you need to have a process to keep violations from coming into your company. You have to have a release management. You have to make sure that all versions that you distribute have corresponding source code. And well, Harald just expanded a little bit on the term full corresponding source code. So your engineers who are going to produce the source code release, they also need to know what that is. You need to have outbound compliance. Make sure by defined processes that the source code is available before the product hits the market, that all license texts are shipped with the product, and possibly other notifications you have to ship. And of course, you have to have a process for reacting to violations. You should not, and also not by mistake, ignore if somebody complains about a GPL violation. So now, who will be responsible for these processes? Of course, usually you have product managers, and these product managers should take responsibility for the open source compliance as well. They should be advised by legal department, and well, of course, the developers are the engine of compliance because they are going to prepare the source code release. So this is your core compliance team for each product, and basically the product managers are the accountable people for the compliance. However, product managers usually have a KPI. Products need to be as fast to market as possible. So naturally, they might be sloppy on compliance, not only open source software compliance. Therefore, your compliance officer has to drive the driver. This core team is going to communicate and coordinate with the involved other parts, which is your supply chain and the community, the source of your software that you may use. Maybe IT for compliance tools. They will coordinate with the production if you are in an MP, a mass production environment like ASUS. Of course, the production needs to scale up the compliance effort to the mass production. It doesn't help you if you ship the license, the correct license text and source code offer to one of the customers. No, it needs to be present in all products that you ship. And of course, sales and customer support, which coordinate with your customers. Again, when you are an end consumer brand, the copyright holder and potential complaints about a violation are amongst your customers. So there is one avoidable problem. You have a customer support agent, maybe outsourced from a call center, and somebody calls in and asks for the source code of that Linux-based product. Well, what can happen is that this customer support agent has no idea what an open source license is, and will say like, well, our intellectual property is of course secret. You cannot have access to that, and that's totally wrong answer. And I believe that even happened in our company. So of course you have to even train your customer support, or you might even want to avoid and shortcut that problem by publishing a dedicated contact window for license compliance. We, for example, have now an email address, gpl@asus.com, where whoever misses any source code on our source code release can contact us, and then will be properly addressed. You can also enlist yourself, your compliance program, with the Linux Foundation's compliance directory, it actually has just been founded last week. So that is a directory that's not public, so don't worry. Whoever you give there as contact will not have a lot of dodgy emails in his inbox the next day. It's closed, and if somebody has a complaint or a problem with the license, they can contact the Linux Foundation, and the contact information will be forwarded to them. Okay, now I would finally talk a little bit about some tools you may use. many companies started using so-called software bombs or bill of codes. How we use it, how we call it in ASUS right now, we call it bill of code now because product managers complained that, or had the concern that BOM, bill of material, give rise to confusion with the actual bill of material. So it's a very small example of being flexible, listen to the feedback, and then revise your compliance program. A software BOM or bill of code is basically simply a list of the ingredients of the product and their respective licenses. It is actually an essential for code management, and it's actually a matter of course, but it is not in reality. As I said, many companies just keep throwing in open source software and have no idea what is in there. So such a list, creating such a list can force yourself to make up your mind. But a software bomb will not only add additional work, it will actually save work because it is the central control document for compliance. It can serve as checklist for inbound compliance and for outbound compliance. And most of all, it can serve as a documentation when you ship your open source software to a corporate customer. Now, well, I'm going to say something about that topic in a while. Just have a look at how a software BOM or bill of code can look like. Well, actually, it's a simple document. So in ASUS, we keep simple things simple and just simply make it a normal spreadsheet that contain information about the software packages, the license, the copyright holder, the original origin, and whether it's modified or not. And we separate this list into a list of those packages that will be published as source code and those that will remain closed. Pretty simple. Now, many companies, as I said, use this concept. Whoops. Okay, that's the next slide. Many companies use this concept, but having several formats and everybody kind of doing his own thing, of course, will not help so much for communicating license information to the product. So there's a joint effort of many companies, and some of which I have listed here on the site, working on a joint standard, the SPDX, Software Package Data Exchange Standard. It's a standard for communicating the components, licenses, and copyright associated with the software package. This standard is currently still under development. There's just this week after the LinuxCon in Boston, a first draft has been published. It's not yet finalized, but if you have a look at this lineup of companies that support the idea and contribute to it, it is very likely to become an industry standard. Target currently is the last quarter of this year, and I encourage you to monitor spdx.org for developments on that. So further tools that can help you are source code scanning tools. Source code scanning tools are actually scanning your source code and compare it with giant databases of supposedly all open source code that is available, and by this can automatically create software bombs for you. It can tell you if you have in those packages that you flag as your own intellectual property, if you have any code matches and thus potential copyright infringements of open source software. These tools can do a lot of things. There is, I think it has also been mentioned before, there's FOSSology, which is free. It's under the GPL itself. There are also a couple of commercial solutions. Some of them I enlist here. Of course, they cost money, these services, but the tools might be very useful for compliance. Another tool I want to mention here is the binary analysis tool. The binary analysis tool is a tool to actually scan the binary versions of your software, and it is basically implementing the methodology of gplviolation.org into an automatized system. So gplviolation.org kind of shared their methodology and their tool with the public. They do so because I believe they see that a lot of license violations are not made out of bad faith. They are made, as Harald just said, because actually a negligence and nobody knew in the supply chain where it's coming from. So the binary analysis tool, well, with publishing this, they are extending the hand of friendship and cooperation to the industry to find the problems together. Further tools that are available are a dependency checker tool and a bill of material differences tool, which of course is heavily dependent on the SPDX standard. Maybe also other tools are available. As a first port of call, I suggest monitoring the website fossbazaar.org, which is a portal for professional open source compliance. Okay, I think I made it in time, so I can still say something about mistakes to avoid. As I said, and I can't say it often enough, you have to take care that your SOPs will suit the workflows that are already in your company. Your policy must not be too strict to be followed. It must not be too technical, because product managers need to be able to understand it as well. It must not be too legal, because product managers need to understand it as well. And it must also not be purely unrealistic. So if you are in a company and you make a policy, well, we just distribute all source code. But in a company that might not be realistic because your management wouldn't approve of it. You have to ensure compliance in most cases till 3 years after end of life cycle, because usually, I mean, it's up to your process implementation, but most companies ship a source code offer, which has been mentioned earlier in the presentation. The source code offer that option requires you to offer the source code for 3 years after the last shipment of your product, so don't drop the ball. You have to make sure that there is a team in your company available which can rebuild the source. If you find a violation or somebody finds a violation that you have to revise the source code release, there must be somebody there who knows how to do that. In that regard, avoid the build guru, how the Free Software Foundation calls it. Build guru means you have only one person in your company who knows how to build a binary. Well, and that company might have been long gone at the time that you need that person. So make sure that's not only important for open source compliance, make sure that you have always at least 2 or more persons who actually are acquainted with the build process. And finally, stay flexible. Don't just add another bureaucracy layer in your company that everybody has to follow, but nobody actually can follow. That will not help you at the end of the day. So, xie.
Thank you, Sean. On some questions? No questions?
没有问题。
没有问题. Yeah, okay, please.
Is there only the free tool to scan and management the license tool is the FOSS 1.0?
MOS?
FOSS ology.
Oh, okay. Well, Fossology is a free tool, but as I mentioned, there is a couple of professional. Fossology is professional, but commercial solutions.
So my question is there only free software to do that?
No. There is also, as I said, there's also solutions like the ones I listed. Black Duck, Protex is one of those. Another one, I'm not sure if NextB is, I think they're not publishing the software, they are just offering services. A couple of others do that as well. But I don't want to mention them, then somebody will complain that why didn't you mention us as well? So this is why I redirected you to fossbazaar.org, where you can find more information about the tools.
Okay, thank you.